So I'm trying to get this Area 51 CPO off of here. I just wanted to see how well preserved the original CPO was for MK3, but it's not going to work out. It's just been stuck on there for so long, and the adhesive is so strong that it's just pulling up the original overlay as well, coupled with all of this stuff that's left over from the original overlay, or from the new one, I mean. So I mean, if I just, all it's taken off is the clear. So yeah, it just, there's no way for me to really do this. I just wanted to see how well preserved the original artwork is, but this is just staying on here. All that's coming off is the protective laminate here. It's just not going to work out. So anyway, this, I'm not reusing it anyway. I just wanted to see how well this looked, but I'm not going to be able to do it. So this is just going to go away in the garbage, and then we'll get cracking on tearing the actual bottom piece apart, because I need to use this as a template for the holes on the sides and the front, for the carriage bolts and the you know, the latches, which are basically those. I need to use this as a template piece for putting the other one together. So let's just take this and throw this out of the way and set this on here and get it torn apart, and we'll have the individual pieces as a template and move on from that point. So here we go. So everything is now hammered apart, and I need to use this as a template for the new one, because the new control panel that I got does not come with any of these braces here for getting it all put together. So I have to take these and remove all of these pieces from these parts and transplant them onto the new setup. You know, these pieces here on each side for the bottom, for the front. You know, I got to take all these braces off and brad nail all this stuff back together. You know, I got my nailer here, so we're gonna have to use the hammer and flathead and take all this stuff apart one panel at a time. I want to take all this stuff apart one panel at a time and transplant it directly from this one to the other one at a time, each piece as I go, so I know the exact location. Just make it less of a headache by doing all this stuff one panel at a time. So I'll grab the wood glue, I'll grab the nailer, I'll grab the new parts and pieces, and we'll get going on transplanting all this together and building our new control panel. So here we go. Well, there you have it. There's the first piece, and you can see that I got the parts swapped over and they're in the right spots and everything. I measured, you saw the whole thing there. So what I'm going to have to do, in the effort of not having a 2-hour-long video, even with the footage sped up, you know, I have to go through and do all the same procedure for all these different parts in here. Yeah, so it's going to take a little bit of time and a lot of effort, but I'm going to actually just do all the rest of this off camera. Because you saw the procedure, you just take the old parts off, and I used a pair of channel locks here, Nippics, to pull the old brads out of the old parts, and then measure and get the right angle and the right measurements, and strip all the old pieces that pulled off the old one off of these pieces and get them flat, glue them in place, brad them in place, and it's, you know, I got the holes drilled for the latch. And you can see how it lines up just with that one. So it's going to be time consuming. So in an effort to not have a 3-hour-long video, I'm going to actually do all the rest of this off camera. But you saw the procedure here, what goes on to get all this done. So I'll get all this done, and then we'll come back and I'll have a fully assembled. Well, do I want to assemble the control? Yeah, I'm probably going to have to. You know, I got to take these pieces off, these here as well. So when I come back, we'll have a fully assembled control panel. I'll show it off, and then we'll paint it, get the artwork on, and proceed with everything from that point. So it'll be just a moment for you, but a couple hours for me. So here we go. Alright, so the brand new control panel is fully assembled and complete and done. And before I show it off, I'm going to show the original carnage here from the original panel that got cannibalized for the reinforcements and everything, and how it was damaged from the gun installation there on the front, lower front, and the actual front panel here had the holes. And so this was all just butchered for the installation of the holders and the guns and the original Area 51 conversion, which then someone converted it to rapid fire, but at one point it was Area 51. So this is all now scrap wood. And then here are all the original brads that I had to pull out from all those reinforcements I reused with the Knipex pliers here. So that this thing comes in handy for grabbing stuff and pulling them out like that. So there's all the original nails and the original wood. And here's the new panel. There are a couple of issues. My tripod fell over. Disregard that. And here it is. There are a couple of issues with it. And that being the fact that this is meant for an MK1, and I had to kind of make it work for an MK3. And by that, I mean this bottom support panel, MK1 is angled in the front, so the attachment points actually sit a bit further, so these holes aren't used. I had to drill new holes for the MK3 offset for the bolts to hold this in. And also because of this, it's a different dimension here. You can see there's a gap right there and a gap right there. And other than this just being an eyesore, it's fine. This is reinforced here. Glue on each side and brads, glue on each side and brads, glued and brad in, glued and brad in, and all that stuff. So it's absolutely, completely, totally secure. And other than just being an eyesore, I mean, I can shove wood in here and fill this area in, but it's just going to be, other than for cosmetic purposes, it doesn't really serve any function because it's absolutely, completely secured and solid. But this is meant for an MK1. And I think because of that, it throws off the dimensions here. But otherwise, everything went in just fine. Got everything secured and nailed in. And next step is going to be to sand it down and paint it and get it ready for artwork application. And we'll call it done. And as you can see, everything is exactly the way it should be. Exactly as the factory one was. Other than this bottom piece being a bit different. But otherwise, yeah, it turned out great. There is one other problem. I'm going to have to end up using the original MK3 factory panel because these are not correct. This is supposed to be an MK1 that they CNC'd to work for MK3, and MK3 is the same as one. All MK1, 2, and 3 are all identical, but this is not correct. Not only is it not wide enough, you can see it's not wide enough. There's a gap there and a gap there, but it sticks out way too far. It's too long. So this is the wrong dimensions of control panel. Then we have this other one that came with this pre-made kit. This one is dedicated for MK1, and as we see on this one, it's also not wide enough. There's a giant gap right here and a giant gap right here, and it's also slightly too long. So we got 0 for 2 on these pre-made panels, so I'm not going to be able to use those. So fortunately I can reuse the factory one here because I have a new metal panel along with new artwork, so we can reuse the factory one here. And as you can see, the factory one is pretty much perfect. There's no gap here. Oh, I gotta set that, there we go. There's no gap here, and it sits right up against the T-molding like it's supposed to. The gap is non-existent here, non-existent here, and it doesn't sit out too far from the edge. It's perfect. So I'm happy with my dimensions. I'm happy with my reproduction here on the getting all this measured and back to factory specs. I'm happy with how this turned out, but we're going to have to reuse the original wood panel from the machine here because these clearly will not work. But as far as all the dimensions and everything, it all ended up being flawless, no pun intended. So now the next step is to get this all sanded down, ready for artwork, and then we'll paint it. I mean, not necessarily in that order. I think I'm probably going to have to do the painting first, and then we'll sand the sides with some 220 grit and the front, and we'll get it ready for the artwork application and proceed on from there. So let's see about getting this painted, sanded, and how it all works out. Probably have to, after that point, we'll get all of the metal parts and stuff reinstalled and work on the artwork. As a matter of fact, the artwork is sitting right here. Brand new CPO front. The sides are sitting right here. Correct MK3 sides, and Lexan's right there. So we'll get all this back together, and hopefully it works out as well as I'm expecting and as well as I'm hoping. So here we go. Well, as you saw there, the control panel is now, I believe, 100% complete. The box anyway. The panel itself is another story. But the entire box is done. We got the sides on correctly in the correct location. The bolt, well, on this side, this bolt should be right somewhat top center of the arc of the W. It's slightly too far that way, but I don't think anyone's going to complain. And this should be right dead center in that D, and it's a little bit to the right. But anyway, so yeah, this is as close as I could have got it. I'm just trying to eyeball it, which is pretty good. The other side over here is somewhat the same. I got stuff in the way. Got to go like this. But this should be roughly right there. This should be roughly right there. So I got these on there pretty much perfect. And then, as you saw, the excess material, I folded over the edge and then tucked it underneath and put the T-molding on top of it. That will prevent it from being, you know, people taking their fingers and going like this and having it be rubbed and pulled off. Only way you're ever going to be able to pull this off is if you try and do it from underneath. But this is nice and level and cut off flush with the wood. So yeah, that's a good way to protect the artwork, is to have it done like that. So both sides and the front turned out flawlessly. I got the wrong angle here. You got a bunch of daylight, but we'll show it off in better form here later. But now it's time to get this control panel situation figured out. What I'm going to need to do is there we go. Okay. What I'm going to need to do is put some toothpicks in these holes, because someone used sheet metal screws. They put these sheet metal screws in there, and I don't know if the security screws I have will fit anymore. So if they don't fit or they're too loose, we'll have to stuff some toothpicks in the holes. You know, a security, this hole here and this hole here and this hole. I'll have to stuff some toothpicks in there and then put the security screws back in. So, yeah, let's get going and cracking on this. Brand new metal panel is right here. And then we'll get the overlay on it and the Lexan and the controls and try and finish this up. So here we go. Well, there you have it. One minty fresh control panel overlay. And I can't say, or I can say, I can't say I wish it would have come out better. It turned out fantastic. So now the next step is to get the Lexan on, get the buttons installed, get the joysticks installed, get all of the security screws installed, everything completely done with this. Then we can actually mount it onto the hinge and get the front part in there that lays up against the retainer for the glass, and get some new T-molding installed. And that'll finish it up. Then we'll work on the wiring, get it all that hooked back up, get the inside of the cabinet situated, and we can pretty much call this done. There will be one more part, because I created a new custom bezel for only MK3 that I have to wait to get printed up, and then the original Midway cabinet ID placards, I got those on the way as well. So that'll be saved for the final part, which will be a quick final part. So this will just be a part 3. I was hoping that this would be a final part, but after realizing that I forgot to get that part done and print it up in time, that'll have to remain to be the final reveal of that stuff. So, but for now, let's get this all finished up and then get the inside going, and we'll see how all that turns out. So again, here we go. Okay, so this is about as far as I can go today. I got a lot of other stuff I have to get done tonight, and I expect it to be much further along than I was, but this took a lot more time than I expected. But that's okay. Like I say, I'm still waiting on the custom bezel I made and the cabinet ID stickers and stuff. So once those come in, we'll get that stuff installed. We'll get all the wiring on the internals, everything done for the control panel and the PCB and everything mounted and wired up. And then that will be the last part. So this is obviously part 3. And then part 4 I'll just label as you know, complete or final part or whatever it ends up being. But for now, yeah, this is all done. And all that's left is the internal stuff. So it turned out very nice. Not exactly flush and perfect, but good enough for what we had to start with. And very happy overall with the turnout. So yeah, we got the artwork all placed properly and on the sides and the front, and the CPO turned out fantastic. Couldn't be happier. It's very tricky. You do not want to cut all the holes first. You want to cut a couple of holes so you can get it lined up properly, but do not cut all the holes, because that will cause the material to not to stretch, but it'll alter it won't be flat anymore. Then when you try and go a little bit by little bit, it'll crease and get all messed up. And I had a little bit of that happening towards the end here, but because I only had the one hole on this side, it flattened out. But yeah, do not cut all the holes, just 1 or 2 maybe for lining it up, and that's it. But it laid down perfectly, turned out perfectly I should say. But overall very happy with the turnout so far. Just got to get all the internal wiring and stuff done, and this will be done. So stay tuned for part 4, the last and final part. And I appreciate you following along on this entire journey, and we'll see you on that one. Hopefully it all turns out as good as I'm expecting. So see you then.